Okay, so now we've just read Hills Like White Elephants by Ernest Hemingway and Story of an Hour by Kate Chopin. And these stories were meant to illustrate the basic literary elements of symbolism and of irony. Symbols and irony have been in all the stories up till now. It's just we haven't really talked about them directly, which I will do with these stories, and specifically in the essay on symbolism and irony, which is on the website for this week. You should definitely check that out. But just to prove to you that we've been dealing with these concepts all along, if we go all the way back to the beginning, let's say a story like Powder by Tobias Wolff, Powder certainly has symbols in it. You know, I don't think you need to necessarily interpret those symbols to understand the story, but they are there and they do help. At the very end of the story, you've got this image of just unbroken snow in front of the car as the boy is driving home with his father. And that unbroken snow and them driving through it can certainly stand for or symbolize their new relationship, because something has changed in the way the boy looks at his father. So there's a symbol there. There's also irony there in that you think the father clearly cares a lot for his son and would like to be closer to his son. And everything the father does to go out of his way to sort of bring them closer together or to sort of interest his son ends up turning his son into a very nervous little control freak. The skiing under dangerous conditions, the going out to a nightclub to see a jazz legend late at night. It really doesn't work. It works exactly the opposite as what the father had intended. So you see there's symbolism and irony. Even though they're not central to the story, they are elements that the author uses. For the two stories this week, I think, for example, Story of an Hour, irony is really the entire story. The whole story is meant to illustrate this one ironic twist at the end when the woman dies and nobody understands that she died of horror that her husband was alive. They all assume she died of joy because they don't know what we know, which is that she's been living a repressed life her entire marriage. In Hills Like White Elephants, it's one of those, it's a rare story where because of Hemingway's choice of point of view, which is objective, where I don't get any thoughts from the characters at all, and because of the dialogue in the story where the two people are arguing but they won't say specifically what they're arguing about, and they won't even tell me what they really think about this argument. They don't express their own true opinions. Because of that, I'm absolutely forced to pay attention to the other elements of the story that I haven't looked at, and mostly which is landscape description. There are two very starkly different descriptions of the landscape on either side of the train tracks. And at the end of the story, which doesn't have much of a real resolution, if I go back and look at those two descriptions of landscape setting, I realize, wow, there really is a specific choice here. One side, dry, barren, dead, empty. The other side, filled with water and grain and fields and trees and life. And the girl is sitting there looking at both sides. And if I take that, those landscape descriptions, and think about them symbolically, and then go back to the story and realize, oh, the man is trying to get her to do something, to have a procedure, which would then allow them to continue living this wandering lifestyle they live, and the girl doesn't want to do it, then the whole point of the conversation becomes clearer. I'm not sure there's a deep theme to Hills Like White Elephants. It's almost like it's sort of almost like a little mystery. Like he's just keeping this symbolic information from you. But again, Hemingway gives you a lot of signals to look at those symbols, the two sides of the landscape. And having done that, you can interpret what they're talking about, and then the story becomes clear. Anyway, so much of what you need to understand is in the essay this week, so I definitely strongly recommend you read through that. And you might consider the stories that you're reading in groups this week as well, because they all definitely have symbolism and irony in them. Okay.